And we're live. That, for those, no one knows this except Cam and me, that took like 20 entire seconds. But welcome to Equal Time Soccer. I'm Matt Pavarotsky here with a mega Gopher soccer transfer show. We are going one by one through the four big transfer announcements the Gophers have had this winter. First up is Camellia. I think you said you go by Cam, so I was saying Cam.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Come in here. Cam played 40 games at Montana. Earned Big Sky honors, career 838 save percentage. I think you have 3 years left. First question, you are Canadian. You went to Montana. Now you're coming to Minnesota. Why are you so damn obsessed with snow, Cam? Like, what's the deal? Like, how did you end up at Minnesota? How did this happen?
I guess you stick to what you're familiar with, and, I chose snow all the way. And, even like through my recruiting in high school, I never really thought about, going anywhere that was like super hot. And personally, in my opinion, I think that I'd much rather layer. You can always put on as many layers as you need, but if you get hot, there's only so many layers you can take off. So
that's true. I mean, people can see what I'm doing. My house, I keep my house at like 59 degrees. I'm insane. Like we know what the vibe is. We know what it is. Well, Cam, I mentioned, you started at Montana. You played a ton of games there, which for a young keeper, I think is way more rare than people think. Like, I think it's actually wild to be sort of your age collegiately and have that much experience. So you come in with a lot of chops, but you landed in the portal. What was going through your mind when you're in that portal in terms of what you were looking for? Like, how did Minnesota get on your radar? And just talk a little bit about that process of, I think, all the drama internally players have to go through of like deciding to go in and then officially going in, and then it hits and then it's happening. And what was that process like for you?
Yeah, I have obviously zero experience with the portal. And, I was kind of, after the end of this last season, I was kind of in a bit of a awkward area in terms of academics. I'm in a position to graduate early. Obviously, I have like you said, several years of eligibility remaining, and so it was just kind of like awkward with school. And I also, like, I'm a very academic person, and so for me, I've always wanted to put school first. And in terms of like a graduate program, like I really, really wanted to focus on like a good school academically that could, fulfill my academic needs. And so I went into the portal very open-minded. I had a select few schools that I was very interested in.
Okay.
Very short list, and ironically, Minnesota was on there. And so, within 2 days of being in the portal, I had reached out to coach, and I heard back from her, and it just really got the ball rolling. And then, a couple weeks of talking, went out to Minnesota, had a great time in Minneapolis, and then made the decision actually on New Year's Eve to become a Gopher. And so
Nice. Well, you're this Aaron era of the Gopher soccer program is having some there's some carryover in your academic nerdiness transfer vibe of, like, Gabby Cesaroni was the ultimate example of this. Like, she talked about when she did her undergrad search, she like only looked at academic programs and then just like happened to email the soccer programs and say, hey, by the way, I'm really good at soccer. Do you want me to play? And then she came here, for her public health masters. For those who don't know, Cam is a political science major, and apologies to all Equal Time viewers. They know Mark and I are both absolute political nerds. So Cam, I'm assuming you came here, you said you were searching based on academics, so you wanted to come to the Humphrey and like get your MPP? What are we doing? What's the program?
not 100% sure. I'm actually following the direction that Gabby has gone.
Okay.
I'm going to the MPH program first,
Okay.
and then public policy is also on there. And obviously, like you said, the Humphrey School of Public Policy is up there. So I've kind of like tried to always just set myself up for the most success, not necessarily focused. Obviously, I did my undergrad in poli-sci, and I don't necessarily want to continue like specifically just directly down the public policy international relations side, except instead like expand my range Ultimately, I want to go to law school, but if that doesn't work out, I have something to fall on. I have a poli-sci degree, and then hopefully something else in a master's. So yeah.
Is there, I mean, we were talking even before we started recording, like the political science is not the most common women's soccer major, at least in my and your experience. Maybe the rest of the world has tons of poli sci like soccer players, but I'm just wondering, is there going to be like a sort of sub caucus of all you political nerds? Like, is it going to be you, Elizabeth Overberg? I can't remember who else is left. Like Lainey graduated, so she's gone. Gabby was kind of political. Is there going to be, are we going to get a political nerd crew? Like, am I going to be able to do a whole show with you all and talk campaigns, talk politics?
I don't know. I think that'd be pretty interesting. I mean, um, Elizabeth Overberg was my host when I was on my
Yeah.
visit, and it was I didn't know she was a poli sci major, and we just kind of struck up the conversation. She's like, "Hey, I'm a poli sci major," and I was like, "Wait, no way, another like soccer poli sci major?" Because I think in general, like I've maybe ever only had one or two student athletes ever in any of my political science classes. So it's really cool to like hear that there are other people on this team that have, similar
Love it.
experiences with undergrad. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah.
I listen, Equal Time always tries to socialize positivity about transferring. Like, not every student's going to find the right spot the first time. And we're also here to socialize positivity about politics.
Mhm.
So everyone get very political, everyone get super nerdy, like get super into it. So Cam, I was able to watch some clips of your film out in Montana. But for those who have, not watched a ton of Big Sky Soccer and have not tuned in to see the Grizz, which is a really cool program, and Chris is doing really good work out there. But for those who haven't like tuned into that program, how would you describe your game? Like, what certain things do you take pride in? What kind of specialty do you think you bring to sort of the keeper crew that you're now going to be spending every minute of your life with for the next like several years?
Um, Obviously, Montana's a great program. I love it, like near and dear to my heart. I still train with them. I still talk to everyone. They mean a lot to me. And I think I'm most grateful for what Montana provided me with the most, which was confidence and someone who believed in me and believed in you know the
Mm-hmm.
like growing me. Out of high school, I wasn't the most heavily recruited player. I knew I was good, but I wasn't the most like statistically best performing goalkeeper. I didn't really start until my senior year of high school
Right.
with my club, so that was really difficult in terms of recruiting. But I just really needed someone to take a chance on me. I knew I could perform. I knew I could, bring what I had to bring. And Chris at Montana, um, took that chance on me, believed in me, believed in the person I
Mm-hmm.
am, believed in how I played. And so, yeah. And then once I got to Montana, I was really able to like showcase what I think I'm best at, which was distribution. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
modern like goalkeeper. Everyone likes to use that term.
Yeah.
I think it's super important to have. I mean, you are the 11th player on the field, and it's expected that the 11th player contributes as much as every other player does. And so I
Yeah.
think that, and then also just experience. I think I've been in like every possible situation, you know, at at the college soccer level at
Right.
this point. I know what to expect. I know what to expect out of others. I know what to expect out of a program. And then I know the standard that a program, a team, a culture should be. So yeah, I'm really, really excited.
Nice. I like, yeah, distribution. That's very true. It's very in vogue for keepers now. It's like everyone needs to actually know how to kick the ball, and which is great. And I'm really curious too. You talked about your official visit. Uh, we desperately try to get the real talk from recruits on here too about like what was your visit like, and everyone is too polite and too strategic and too savvy to not give us the craziest party details or anything wild, but like all jokes aside, what are those visits like? Like, what do what do you go into? Okay, I'm considering Minnesota. I like their grad programs. They even have, a good law school, whatever, like all these academic tie-ins. But then when you get the invite to come to the official visit, you set it all up and you're coming here. What are like the goals you have for what you need out of the weekend? Like what is, are you like a mixture of like is the team vibe good in terms of the teammates versus like how's the campus feel versus, oh, what if I can meet with someone from like this program, like this literal academic leader or something? What's all the stuff that goes into that for people who have never had to do like that kind of, okay, weekend, like dive in, what do I need to get out of this to make a decision?
Yeah, obviously, you have a very short time period with official visits, so it's really busy, really crammed day. Um, I think, like you said, academics is important to me, and it's obviously a very important part in being a collegiate athlete. But I think before any of that, the most important thing is meeting the team, meeting the players, meeting the coaches, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you spend, if not every second of every day with them. And, if the team, the school could be Ivy League, but you might not like the team, you might not mesh with the team, you might
Right.
not connect with the coaches. And in the end, if you're not happy with the team that you're on at this school, then why go to this school? So,
Uh-huh.
I had I focused I already knew that Minnesota was a really good academic program,
Right.
and so I was pretty confident about that going in, and it was more about, the team culture, the girls, and,
Mm-hmm.
just seeing how, a day-to-day life is and how, the social aspect is. So I had really good time hanging out with them, got to know a couple of the girls, got to meet, pretty much everyone, watched practices, watched how they, connected on the field. That's really important, and then obviously got to watch, coach
Mm-hmm.
interact with the players, and yeah, it really sold it for me.
How do they how do the coaches, like obviously in a transfer situation even more I think than original like undergrad recruiting, like a program obviously wants you to like there it's a little bit more two-sided to in my mind, like a little bit more like program needs, and so I'm always really curious like how the U sells itself like to transfers, like they're talking to someone who's been at, maybe it's not a power five, but it's like a really good, it's a good team, like a winning team at like, I think a pretty well regarded, university, whatever. They're talking to you. They know what you care about. But like, what was Gopher Soccer's pitch to you? Like, what do they, when you have to watch like the 7 PowerPoints in a row from like every different part of the program? I'm really curious, like, how do they sell the program to you? Like, what's the spiel that they hit you with of saying like, this is why you'd be good, this is why we're good for you, like come to us?
I think it depends with every recruit, and I think every coach really needs to get to know what each player is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the staff at Minnesota knew that academics was a huge part in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and so they really like pitched the academics piece super hard. One of I think my first interview actually when I was on campus was with Kyle, the academic advisor for
Yeah,
women's soccer, and I had such a great time talking with him, and like,
they love
his,
Kyle. I don't know. I can't remember if I've mentioned Kyle on the show before, but like he's super well regarded. I try and hype up all the support staff. Like I always talk about SJ and Corey and like all these people. Kyle is like insanely well regarded, the academic advisor for the team. He's like super, super beloved in those halls.
Yeah, totally. And he's like, so he even like I wasn't even committed at the time, and he was so supportive of like walking me through all the potential opportunities, how we can make things work. And like, obviously, as I'm now in the application process, he's been with me every step of the way. And so um, the staff really pitched the academic piece hard for me. And then really I also emphasized that I really wanted a great team culture. And so,
Right.
um, we got to go see a hockey game, hung out with the girls, like I said. And ironically, it was the weekend of the National College Cup. And
Okay.
so a pretty large group of us got to watch both games together, and just, I wasn't even committed yet. And I felt like I was really bonding. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Cam and is it Zhu? How do we pronounce the last name?
Cam Zoo, like you're going
Zoo.
to the
Got it.
zoo. Yeah.
Cam Zoo, incoming keeper transfer for Gopher Soccer. Cam, so excited to see you suited up this fall. Thanks for joining us, and we'll have to learn more about politics,
Oh,
Canada,
yeah.
everything next. We'll have to have you on again. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great one.
Next up, the Serb herself. We got Jelena Zbiljic, Serbian as hell, which I always love. Got to Jelena is no stranger to equal time coverage. Yell, you've played at the U of M when you were with UIC, and I think we did a post game with you. You've had to deal with me forever because of that. You obviously are from Minnesota, which is, I think, unique. Out of all the 4 transfers, you're the one coming home, which is really exciting. Thanks so much for joining us, Yell.
Oh, thanks for having me, Matt. I'm excited.
So I think I have this right. I think you should have 2 years left of eligibility. You did 45 games at UIC. Really, I think, I've probably seen you play more than any of the other transfers coming in, so we can talk about your game in a second, but talk about what about the U made you want to come home and play for the Gophs?
Honestly, I just always wanted to kind of like finish up at home after playing with Aurora over the summer, and just like being home for the first time in the summer, because I wasn't home the summer before. I stayed in Chicago, and so being home and just being with family, and then also just like being able to represent my home state for the U. I mean, my mom went to the U. She was on the dance team here. She was the captain, and I've been on the U's campus since I was probably like 10 years old, going to like hockey games, basketball, football. Like we've just lived and breathed Gopher sports ever since I was little. So being able to represent them now and be a part of it, it's just amazing. Like I'm so happy to be here. It's just very exciting.
I love that tie-in. Your mom was the dance team captain. That's so legit, by the way. So I'd completely forgotten. Folks will know Mark and I are both obsessed with hyping up the moms on Equal Time, because the moms are easily the biggest supporters of Equal Time. Our mom, players' moms, the coaches' moms. It's just like moms in general. And so now I know I get to have your mom on for a What Do the Mom Think segment. I completely forgot about this. This is great.
Yeah.
Yell's mom is the absolute best. She's like the nicest person in the entire world. So Yell, you mentioned, getting to come home is like such a fun thing. And honestly, Aaron basically had a similar journey. You both were Chicago area folks, and now coming back to Minnesota. I think I would describe your game as sort of, for Gopher fans who want comparisons, as sort of Meg Grayian, or even sort of similar to Sophia Romine. Honestly, I think there's elements of that sort of jack of all trades, like high work rate, high grit rate, kind of plays well in combination, sort of could play wherever, which honestly that can be a benefit, but as a player it also can be a detriment. You're like, great, now I get to play outside back, what a freaking party. But so you've probably seen the Gophers play at least a little bit, you've played against them a little bit, you sort of are generally aware of Aaron, all that stuff. Where do you think, you can play all these different places, your game is pretty flexible, but where, if everything worked perfectly and everything aligned perfectly, where do you think you sync best in, the sort of stuff you've seen of Gopher soccer?
Yeah, probably somewhere along the outside, outside mid, outside back, depends like formation wise, either a wing back, outside forward, or a traditional outside back.
Yeah.
Because I kind of came into college soccer as an attacking center mid and went all over the place, and then ended as an outside back. And then with Aurora, went up to outside forward. So I've kind of like seen it all. And I guess I just really like the width and taking players on. And I think probably anywhere along the outside. I mean, it is nice to be able to play a bunch of different positions, but I've started to get more comfortable with the wing and outside back.
There's been a bunch of tinkering the last 2 seasons anyway. Like the idea of me trying to predict where anyone will play is, first of all, I'm always very wrong, but the idea of trying to do it now is especially wrong. So I'll continue to keep being wrong. But I think in particular, if the Gophs end up still running that 3 front, like a 4-3-3 with the true like wingers up top, I've already started daydreaming, man. I've already started daydreaming about like keep Romine as the center forward instead of the 10, put her at center forward, put you on the wing, put like Nemec on the wing, like do full, get Sadie Harper in the mix, do full chaos press, like no holds bar. And like Erin is about to block me on her cell phone for sure, because anytime I text her about anything, I'm like press. Like all I can think about is the press. And I think you do have that as part of your game, but talk about just kind of what some of your strengths. I mean, I'm sort of like speaking what I think your strengths are, but talk about the stuff you're sort of most proud of in your game, like what you think your biggest selling points to a program like the U were for them being like, oh yeah, she's played 50 games, like we know what her game is. But how do you sort of, when you have to talk to Erin, how do you kind of like pitch your game of like, this is what I bring?
I guess just being like a versatile player has really had its perks. I've kind of seen the field in a bunch of different places, so I'm kind of familiar with how other people play in different positions. So I know how to go up against outside backs because I was one myself, or like going against attacking center mids or defending them. And I don't know, I really like to take players on 1v1 or do that like combination play and just get good like crosses and serves into the box, stuff like that. I think that's what my stronger suit is just kind of going at players 1v1, taking my chances and hopefully making them look silly or something.
You saying I love to go at players 3 times in the first 5 minutes is like, you're just throwing bait at me. You're just trying to get me psyched for the fall season. You're just trying to get me all excited. Like you just know I'm psyched. You're, like I said, you're sort of grit and do it all versatility. You're sort of a classic, like equal time all-star. You know, that's the type of player that we always hype up. But I really think you also like, I mentioned the political stuff with Cam before this. You also are like number one in my heart because you're the only college soccer player I've ever seen say they chose their college because they wanted to be in a big city. And you said that when you went to Chicago. And I love that so much because like women's soccer can be suburban as hell. And so when you said you wanted to be in a big city, I thought that was so cool. But I mean, that's just super fun. But you obviously, you know, you're at UIC for 2 years. You're familiar with you know, Minneapolis. What about sort of that city environment is something that appeals to you?
Well, I had family in Chicago, so we've always like gone to Chicago in the summers and stuff like that. So it kind of felt like my second home. And I just really liked being in the city because being away from home, kind of trying to just do college on your own and be your own person and figure yourself out. I feel like it was amazing to have 2 years in Chicago and kind of do that and go through just like life on my own in a little bit, like just being in a big city and also like having things to do around there. I mean, there's always something to do in Chicago and same here in Minneapolis. There's always something to do. I really like the appeal of being in a city rather than some like small town or something, just because there's so much livelihood and there's just a lot going on.
What's the go-to? Let's talk Chicago. I know, like, you know, truly nothing about it other than having been there 10 times in my life or something. But what's the go-to stuff? Like, what was the standard issue, like activity for you and the squad? Like, what were the go-to spots?
It's a very cultural city, so I love that. I mean, there's like Serbian stuff you can do over there. Some guys on the men team, one was Ukrainian. We went to a Ukrainian festival. We lived in Little Italy, so they blocked off the whole road for Italian festivals. We lived by Greek Town. There was like huge Greek festivals, just like a lot of different culture aspects that you kind of like get to see all these different cultures and all these different people come together. And it was really cool. Or we'd be really close to Lake Michigan. So we would just bike to the lake and be in the city. And that was super fun. Or we'd go downtown and there's always a lot of tourists. Like there's just always something. We biked a lot as a team, different places, either downtown or something like that.
Dude, this is the first time I think a player has ever mentioned biking. Obviously, I'm an absurd biking nerd too. We're gonna yell, like we're gonna rope you into some bike content now. Like, look out, this is dangerous. I think there was a point in the winter, you know, when I was chatting with Erin and asking about possible transfers, and she was sort of, I think there was a point where she thought none of the transfers would be able to come in for spring. And I think, so you're here for spring, right? Like you're with the program, which I think was a surprise to me in an exciting way. Cause I think that, that time to sort of get some reps and get comfortable with the program and all that stuff is really beneficial. So I have 2 things I need to ask you about. First of all, just what is, you know, what do you think that means for you to have that extra time to adapt? So we can cover that first. And then the second one, I'm going to make you give all the intel you have on Paige, who's an incoming freshman, but is early enrolled. So you have seen her play. Like I haven't seen it. We need to get some intel. So start with sort of what it is for you. And then we're going to get into the Paige scouting report.
Okay. For me, it's just awesome because I get to be with the team right now. I started up like winter trainings when I was cleared. I had to wait to
Mhm.
get my physical and stuff. So I got to work with Corey in the winter with some of the local girls. So I got to know them a little bit before we even started in the spring, which was very
Mhm.
nice to kind of get the hang of stuff before getting thrown into it all. And
Mhm.
then now here in the spring, like this was our first week of actual soccer practice. And it's just
Right.
nice to be able to see how differently some people play, or like I get to play with Sophia Bowman, who I played club with, and like I get to play with certain people that I haven't played with in a while. So it's kind of fun to reconnect that way. And it's
Uh-huh.
just nice to like bond and gel before we actually start the season next fall because it starts like right away. You
Dude,
get going. So it's really nice to have this extra
the,
time.
the fall season, I've started saying it more and more. The fall season is nuts. Like I cannot believe every time it starts up again and then it's happening. Like I cannot believe the hell you all go through like during the fall season. Like it is the 2 days a weekend and the sprint, there's like no recovery, and then that starts, and then classes get added, and I'm just like, God, these women are freaking terminators, man. Like this is crazy town. Well, and so Yale, you're a spring enrollee, which I think for a transfer is maybe more common. And then this program hasn't had a ton of freshman early enrollees, but Paige, I think it's Kalal. I'm probably saying it wrong, Kalal, whatever. She is very hyped by the coaching staff. Like the coaching staff is very high on Paige. Like possibly could play big minutes, even start as a freshman level like hype to me, which is very rare. So give us the tea, give us the inside stuff. What's Paige's game? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, she's my roommate right now, so it's really awesome to be able to both be the newbies, like, living together, um,
Yeah.
but she's awesome, like, work rate, phenomenal, technical, like, a very, very skilled technical player, like, really high IQ. She's kind of an
Uh-huh.
attacking center midfielder, so knows when to, like, find those pockets of space for herself or distribute to others, so that's just really nice, especially being, like, an outside forward or a winger, like, to have someone find you as an option and stuff like that. But she's also very, very technical player. So like her on
Well,
the ball, I'm
I,
confident in her skill.
dude, I need to chill. I'm getting way too hype, and the season's like 9 months away. I'm already getting like so psyched to watch this team. It's the only heartbreaking thing is that the spring season is so kooky that like even when the team is available, and I drove to Lawrence, Kansas to watch the game last year. Like I go to these road games. It's still so kooky because of player availability. So I can't even get my spring hopes up because it's like who's event. If there's only if you have to do a random 3-back one game and then the next game you do whatever. So I need to. I'll pump the brakes. I'll chill. Don't worry. And I'm curious too. When you were coming into the program, you have a Chicago had that Chicago connection, and obviously Meg, who's coming on next, is Chicago area, even from Illinois, and Aaron. Like there was a joke with a guy on Twitter was like, "Oh, I bet Aaron knows about Yale because Equal Time's been covering her." I'm like, or because Aaron coached in Chicago for 10 years and knows every single person in that whole city. But was there any sort of Chicago connection, do you think? Like, did she mention that she'd seen you or was aware? I know she knows, the USC coach like Dave, and I know there's so many webs of connections and stuff, but did that come up, that Chicago connection?
Not really. I know
Okay.
she like knows David very well, and
Right.
he was an awesome coach, and obviously came from a Big Ten program, so it was nice to have him as our coach
Mhm.
too. And she speaks very highly of him, and so it's nice that they have a great relationship. And then also just she's from Minnesota. I mean,
Yeah.
we went to a few Aurora games, and
Uh-huh.
Nicole was very helpful too, Coach Nicole from Aurora, and just I don't know, I kinda just put myself out there. I really wanted to come home, be at the U. They're really the only people I was really, like, wanting to, talk to and be a part of their program when I entered the transfer portal, and it's just I'm
Mhm.
so thankful it all worked out because once I found out that it would start working out, I just didn't even wanna look anywhere else and just make that my priority.
Nice. Well, Yell, thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, we don't want to just do comparisons, like straight up one for one comparisons, but there is a Meg Gray shaped hole in my soccer heart right now, and I do think there's going to be some Venn diagramming of that fandom. So, Yell, thanks so much for joining us, and looking forward to see you in those spring games.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Matt.
All right, see ya. Next up, oh my gosh, you guys, I mean, Mark got to interview Sarah Fuller. This might legitimately be like one of the shiniest, big timiest transfers incoming in my time covering the Gophers. Meg, you are in all everything, including All-American, coming in. So excuse the levels of hype that are going to be going on in the show, but thanks so much for joining us. Oh, you're muted. Did I mute you? Let's see.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. So, Megan, you had 70 games at Loyola, 21 goals, 23 assists. We do only get you for a year, but that is the nature of this game. We have to ramp up quickly. But first and foremost, let's just talk through you go into the portal. You're a very highly touted player, very well known. Like I said, I had that All-American year, but otherwise just generally very productive, like very consistent and productive. So when you go into the portal, how does Minnesota get on your radar? Were there programs you were considering, or were you just sort of dealing with a deluge of messages like nonstop?
Yeah, I kind of just entered the portal to see what would happen and see who would reach out to me. And then once I started getting a lot of people interested, I kind of like responded to the ones that seemed like the most genuine to me and that I was actually interested in. And yeah, Minnesota just happened to be one that seemed like it could be a good fit at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. What sticks out about a program like Minnesota to a player like you? Because I think, you've been in Missouri Valley, A10, like you've played all these different schools, you've played all these different programs, you've been through tournament play, you've been through it all. Like, what sticks out about a program like the Gophers to a player like you that's had all that experience?
Yeah, I think I wanted a bigger program and kind of a more like competitive conference. And I mean, Erin reaching out to me, her explaining like their program and their culture just seemed very enticing for me as a player to go there. And it seemed like somewhere I could really grow as a player.
Right. Well, and you mentioned like once messages start flooding in, I think a lot of players when they get in the portal are just drowning in messages. This really isn't hyperbole. Like, I'm sure it was on a whole different level for you. Like, what is the scale of programs we're talking? Like, is it like dozens? Is it hundreds? Like, it would not shock me if you got like 150 programs like bug, just because the portal is nuts. Like, people don't get, like, the portal is crazy. Like, it isn't. Coaches live in it. Like, they are sending messages 24 hours a day. So what's the scale? Like, what's the scale you had to deal with, like, in your email inbox, in your text, like all of that stuff?
Like the first 4 days were pretty extreme. There wasn't that bad. It was like maybe 50, like overall.
Like, and is it mostly the other thing? So I finally have had a coach that showed me the portal. For years, I've wanted to just like literally see the portal. And one of the kookiest things about it is all it tells you is that a player is in it. But like, it doesn't list your email and your cell or what, like it doesn't. It's not like they literally just click email this person and then it emails you. Like, they have to go get your email, whatever. So is it almost all emails, or do they like hunt around and get your cell? Like, what's the vibe?
Some of them, I mainly got emails. Some of them like would reach out to my like coach at Loyola and like get my number. And then I got like a couple texts. And then like once I responded to coaches, I would like text them because it's just like easier that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first day I entered, I just like threw my phone away. I was like, I need a day to like process.
Well, it's like, it's also, it's that the moment you're officially in it is also sort of a culmination of a very like draining process. Even if everything is amicable and everything goes great and blah, 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 it's still this like huge thing you have to deal with of like, okay, now I've personally decided, okay, now I've told some people, okay, now I've told the coach, okay, now I've told the team, okay, now it's official, okay, now I'm in. It's like the culmination moment too of probably just like, like finally I'm just in it.
Yeah. It's very like, it's like once you're in it, like you're in it now. You're like, oh, okay, now there's no going back.
Right.
But yeah, it's a crazy process, but
So you have you have those dozens of folks reach out, at least like the cold email thing of like, hey, Megan, love your game. We'd love to have you here, blah, blah, blah. And then in your head, plenty of those are sort of automatically not on the radar. And some of them are sort of on the radar. And some of them are like, oh, interesting on the radar. How do you even go about parsing those options you have? So like, let's pretend all of them offered you the same thing. You thought all of them were good to some degree. Then how do you even go about, sort of reviewing those options? Like, do you try and watch some film, or is that like way too long and boring, so you just try and talk to the coach? Like, do you scroll players on social to see what their vibe is? Like, do you just look at stats? Like, what do you even use to try and compare those programs?
yeah, I mean, even in my when I was in high school, looking at schools, I always kept my a small pool of schools I was looking at.
Uh-huh.
So this time around, I basically did the same thing.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted to stay semi local, Midwest.
Okay.
So I mainly looked at that, and then I would just look at I would go on the school's website, look at stats. I didn't watch any film really, but
yeah. Well, it would be
honestly,
it would just take too much time. Like even if you wanted to, and you were like a film person, trying to watch like multiple teams and like multiple games of multiple teams, it's like, no, that's a job. Like, no, screw that.
Yeah, and it's like I'm not the one playing. I'm like, so it's just weird. I don't know. I just chose not to watch any film, but you could get a good feel of a team just talking to the coach and looking at the girls on the team.
Right. And I'm really curious too. I mean, once you're actually talking to Erin, and Erin, you said, part of Erin's appeal was it seemed like that outreach was genuine and like she came across well and all those things. But what's her pitch to you? I mean, like, what's the way that she said like, hey, this is how you would fit. This is why you would fit. This is what we do. Like, what's that pitch?
Yeah. So I think I had played against, cause she used to coach at DePaul. So I played against her my freshman and sophomore year. So she did kind of know me as a player.
Right.
So that I think helped her. She's like, I know you, I know how you play. You would fit in really well with our team and our style. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, she knew I wanted to go somewhere where I could grow and get to that next level. And I think, she basically pitched her coaching staff. She had a lot of confidence in being able to get me where I want to go.
Right. Yeah. Like we have a player who's literally been an all everything college player who then went to the NWSL, who's in Maya Hayes. It's like, what other forward coach do you want? It's for sure. Well, and I'm curious too, just for, if fans have not watched a ton of Loyola soccer or happened to not see you when you played in summer league squads, which I know actually that's why I've seen you play a couple times too. But if folks haven't seen you play, how would you describe your game? Like, what would you say your strengths are, and what do you try to bring to the table?
Yeah. I think my strengths are definitely speed and just work ethic. I think my work engine's pretty big, so I can go for a long time without getting too tired. Mm-hmm. And then just ability to take people on 1v1 and get to goal.
It's dangerous you saying you have a high work rate, because Erin has been known to let killers stay out there and be killers. Moment there was games 2 years ago where Meg Gray and Kenna Beisman were going 90 even as outside mids. Sophia Bowman's a Terminator. This team is she's racking up Terminators. You all are wild. So there's been, I think I mentioned in a previous one of the previous players, there's been some tweaking as Erin sort of finds the right way to sort of fit players with each other and find the right tactics and all those different things. But let's pretend that the 4-3-3 is what sticks, and it's a pretty standard 3 top, or 3 up front. do you, where in that formation do you think you naturally fit best? Is it sort of that outside wing and you just like stretch the hell out of the defense and just make outside backs' lives a living hell? Is that the thought?
Yeah, I think I would be most like beneficial out on like the right wing, but
Okay.
just like, yeah, taking that space, getting like end line, crossing it back. That's like pretty much what I've done for the past 4 years. So yeah.
Nice. I will say I watched some clips of you just sort of embarrassing defenders, and it was getting me pretty jacked for sure. I was pretty psyched. I will say, and now in the background, not in the show, Jordy is here, and so now she does get to hear this. The word on the street is Jordy is really good in the air. She's sort of a standard tall center back type player type that's good in the air. But Megan, we both know you had a header goal like on a corner kick. Like, are you going to challenge that aerial supremacy as like a big dog 5'3" winger? Are you going to bring an aerial threat to the team? Is that going to be something?
I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. So if the ball comes to me, I'm jumping for it.
That's great. I mean, you said speed is your game, but like, yeah, go in, be an aerial threat. The team needs it for sure. Well, and Megan, is there anything about you're obviously, I think you're from Illinois, right? And then you were in Chicago. What about Minnesota? I also need to throw this at you. What about Minnesota are you excited about trying now that you're up here? What sort of absurd stereotypical crap are you looking forward to testing out for real now that you're up in Minnesota?
I think what is it? Curling, isn't that big? Yeah, maybe do that.
You'll do curling? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there's no other stuff that you've seen in like silly, like the movie Fargo or like do you have Mall of America vibes? Like what's the stereotypical?
I've been to Mall of America. But...
Actually, this is a better question. What is the stuff as an Illinois person that you think of Minnesota? Like top 5 things you think of Minnesota. Do you just think of the accent, snow, Mall of America, and like cheese curds? Like what's the stuff that Illinois people think about Minnesota?
I grew up with my mom like watching Mary Tyler Moore, like the show. So
yes, that's great.
That's kind of where my mind goes.
Okay. But you are the only 20-something in the entire world who would give that answer, by the way.
Yeah. I know.
Okay, Mary Tyler Moore. And then when you came up to like, what other stereotypes were you expecting to get hit in the face with? Like, you come to campus, were you just waiting for people to say, like, oh yeah? Like, what were you expecting when you come up?
Yeah, like hockey players, like saying bag, like big, stuff like that.
That's great. Well, Megan, be careful. I actually think an equal time feature of you going curling is in the future now. So dangerous. No one can mention stuff on these shows because I will do content around it. So that will happen. Megan Nemec, all everything. Incoming winger transfer for the Gophers. Excited to see you this fall, Megan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Last but certainly not least, we got Jordy Rothwell, incoming defender transfer, played down at Creighton. Like many of the players on tonight's show, has an Aaron Chastain connection. You were, of course, balling out down in the Big East. Aaron had to face off against you at least a few times in your era. Jordy, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's nice to finally meet you. Yeah.
So you were a stalwart down there for Creighton, played 60 games over 4 years, tons of minutes, innings eater down there on the back line. My sources down in Corn Country, as I mentioned during Megan's segment, tell me that you're good in the air. I think you're like 5'9", so you have good positional size. And I don't want to set the bar too high. Minnesota did have maybe the most absurd like defender grad transfer aerial threat situation of all time last fall. I don't think it's fair to be like, are you going to have 6 header goals as a center back? But let's pretend that the Ciceronian crown is up for grabs. just talk about your game. Is that the aerial threat part? Sure. But talk about your game if folks want to get hype about you playing in, maroon and gold.
No, I like heading the ball. I love heading the ball. I love getting the challenges. I love winning ball in the air. The ball shouldn't be in the air realistically that much besides in the box up across. But in the women's game especially, like the ball is pretty much bouncing around a lot. So yeah, if the ball's gonna be coming in the air, I'm gonna head it for sure. I think, and I've met Gabby, and she's a wonderful human being. But yeah, 6 goals in a season, she's ahead. She knows what she's doing. I think
I'm still not sure that Gabby's real. I'm still not sure that I didn't dream that sort of like D3 All-American comes in and starts in the Big Ten, is one of the best center backs in the conference, is just like, I still think it might actually be like a cartoon I dreamt up. So honestly, Jordy, you're coming in. I haven't, I've not seen a ton of your film. I've not watched a ton of your games, but I did go through on Y-Scout. I mentioned with someone else too. You can go and look at like play types. And I actually started by looking at goals or whatever, but then I actually got down to business and watched your fouls and your contests. And you're super gritty, like you're defending strong. It seems like you really sort of use your frame well, like you're constantly running through players. There's actually a lot of fouls that were just not fouls, but a player fell down and so you got whistled. Like when I'm watching it, I'm like, that wasn't a foul, but someone did fall, so I guess they blow a whistle. But actually the biggest thing that stuck out to me was just how locked in you seem all the time. Like, I think what I couldn't get over is seeing you, what you were doing physically made me think about what you were doing mentally. Like you were constantly adjusting position, staying in position, trying to be in front, like shoulder check, like quick shift, all those things. Talk about that mental side of having to be that like last line of defense before the keeper, because it seemed like that's a huge part of your game just based on what I was seeing.
Yeah, no, I would say freshman year, it was a learning curve for sure. Coming into college for most anybody. I'm not gonna lie, I did give up a few PKs. I've learned a lot since then, just about awareness. And as a center back, I'd say I'm pretty conservative. Right. Here at Creighton, we focus a lot about like distribution, possession. So it's mostly for me, it's 1-2 touch. Right. Not very often will I play a long ball because there's a high potential that it's going to be ripped off. I do play out of the back, play 1-2 touch. So that is partially my game, is just trying to, and I'm very vocal and I like to command my back line and the center mids, and sometimes maybe a little too vocal, but I just like to know. Me talking keeps my brain going, and so if I'm telling people what to do or like making sure they see it, and it helps me to like be able to look around as well.
Well, you and Plashko can have shouting contests then. You both can be loud as hell back there. I didn't realize it because half the time I'm in the box and the windows like aren't open or whatever. And then the few games where I'm actually outside, I was like, good Lord. Because people talk about how Plashko is like really loud and she's screaming all the time. And but once you actually experience it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, she is barking out there, which is sort of a keeper and a center back thing. So it's good. You both should be. Well, in that long ball, I definitely saw a few clips of that. And I think what you described of like having to adjust as a center back, like as a freshman, is like so insane. Like it's so rare for players to be impact players as freshmen in any position, but to do that on the back line is just like bonkers town, like truly crazy. You come in with so much experience, like all having to go through all of that, and now you bring that with you as a veteran. What was it, about what was sort of the Gophers' way of talking to you about how you would fit in? Like, what was their conversation with you about sort of, wow, it'd be great for you to do X, we'd love for you to be able to do Y?
Yeah, I think mostly talking to Aaron and the other coaches, Gabby was a wonderful addition to their back line. And obviously she's gone. So right now there's a hole like that they wanted to fill, and putting somebody like E is a wonderful, great center back, and putting somebody next to her that's a little like is more experienced, like 3 more, like I think 2 years on her, but it's like she's growing as a player, but then having somebody that isn't as new as well is like kind of balances out a little bit. And kind of talking to them, they're like, we would ideally like to hopefully move into playing more out of the back, more of like a possession style.
Yeah.
But obviously it depends on the pressure, depends on the game plan, everything like that.
Yeah.
So I think just from that aspect, just kind of looking to fill the position where Gabby was playing and just trying to make a difference, but also be able to benefit the team and hopefully bring us to a Big Ten championship for sure. So
I love it. This is I don't know the last time a player came on or even a coach and said like, yeah, we want to win a Big Ten championship and do it. I'm ready for all these statements. Like, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's start like put it on the bulletin board. Let's get wild. I'm here. And I'm really curious for you, you go into the portal. I mentioned with Meg and all these other people I'm talking to today. I mean, you for sure were deluged with tons and tons of messages. Like, if you're a consistent starting center back who's played at the Big East level, like for a team like Creighton, like basically every team in the country can use a player like that. Like, even if you have two starting center backs, I'm sure there were teams that like literally have two starting center backs and still thought, holy shit, if we could have Jordy on the squad, like as an insurance policy, like every team in the country could use a player like you. So for you, what did you go into the portal thinking? Like, what was your mindset of sort of, here's what I want with my sort of final year?
So honestly, growing up, I always wanted, so I live 15 minutes away from UW-Madison.
Okay.
So kind of grew up going to those games all the time. And I was like, okay, I want to go Big Ten. I want to do this. When I was a freshman, there was a lot of development that needed to be had. And I chose Creighton just because
you mean in your own game, you're saying?
Oh, yes. A lot. I mean, physical, mentally, yeah, everything. But I chose Creighton because Creighton's just the best. I don't regret my experience there at all, but here at all, I mean. But I looked at myself and I was like, you know what, you've been here for 4 years. You're not supposed to be, like, without COVID, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
And for another year. And so I was kind of like, I was evaluating, I was like, you know what, like I thought long and hard about what I really wanted to do. And I, to be honest, I was a little comfortable with where I was. Just kind of like, you've been there for a long time, like you've established yourself and you kind of know what you're going to get besides like the team that you're playing. And so for me, I thought personally, like from a growth aspect, to going to play for Erin, and I saw her play at DePaul, or like saw her play against her team in DePaul, and I know her coaching philosophy. And so, yeah, I was talking to a few teams, and then I really like talked to Erin. I went on a visit to Minnesota, and I was like, you know what? I had a day, like I came home and my sister like saw me like really happy. She's like, you're going there. And I was like, well, like, I don't know yet, like I'm gonna sleep on it. But no, like I just really got good vibes from Minnesota and the program, and the girls are great. The coaches are wonderful. Yeah, and they just, to me, like I'm something that they need. And for me, like I'm not going into a graduate program, so I could kind of choose, like selfishly, I could choose soccer. So yeah, obviously I'm going to take classes, and I mean, I'm focused on school, but it's like I could choose something to help me grow pretty much as a soccer player. And so I thought, why not?
Yeah.
Very happy with it also.
That is a luxury to be able to say, like, and I think you're someone who I would hope you have pro ambitions. Like I think that's what, I'm assuming you have pro ambitions of like, let's try something harder and see what we can do. And it's like, the idea of especially a fall sport athlete and the way the calendar works, it's like if you're going to go in and you don't have to do a full year program, it also gives you the flexibility of like having the mindset from jump of, I might not actually do a year with this program. I'm actually here for the fall because, I want to either try to get drafted or try to go overseas or try to do whatever. And so it's also a little bit different of a choice, I have to imagine, when you sort of go in eyes wide open of, hey, I'm committed and I want to be here and it's really cool, but it might actually be a 6-month thing, like not a, 12 or 11-month thing.
Yeah.
And so it's to be sort of eyes wide open about it, I'm sure is helpful too, because then you just go in knowing what you need to do. It's like, I only have so long to like make an impact and do whatever. And you mentioned you had development left when you were young. There's a lot of development to do. I'm curious from your perspective, especially as a center back, the physical side, like the strength side, was there a challenge of having to be like in a legit, strength program, like trying to put on size, like all of that stuff of just like, how do I fill up my frame? How do I, talk a little bit about that side of it, because I think people probably don't appreciate like the shock value that can come of having to be in a big time like strength program for the first time.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because going into Creighton, during the season, we don't lift a lot. And I think I was pretty much the same frame freshman year as I am now. Probably, I would say a bunch stronger, but I think the biggest thing for me was learning the college game is so different from high school, where it's like, you get the ball, you don't have like 3 seconds on the ball. You have like 1 second. They're coming blazing at you. Like, I can't even. A few of the preseason games, I would just give the ball away, and it was just like, this is great. Like, this is insane. So there's a learning curve for sure. But once you get it, you understand it. It's fine. But as a center back, it's like you can't pass the ball away. It's like so that was the hardest part for me. And then like the spring following, just working on speed and strength, it only benefits you.
Right. Well, and like I said, from the clips I saw, you have plenty of positional strength and all that stuff. I find there's certain players like this is so long ago now, but like Maddie Gaffney is a great example, who was an outside back in my early time covering the Gophers, and now she's actually an assistant coach at South Dakota. And she talked about going into college. She was 90 pounds, and she's like 5'5" or like 5'6". Like, she's not super short, and she weighed literally 90 pounds. And so she was like really proud of gaining, I think 35 pounds, or like, like, which is, if you start at 90, like being able to put on weight, like, would be so hard. And so I just think of those stories about players who come in. And it's also funny because I think like my examples, I always compare, like Ari Del Moral and Athena Kuhn have really similar frames, like for Gopher nerds, but like they don't play the same. Like, you use the frame differently and all that stuff. So it's, I'll get out of my use of body frame rabbit hole that I somehow get into.
No worries.
And I'm curious too, you had that Big East connection, what you kind of probably had a general vibe, the way Aaron was selling how the program would play in Minnesota. But what was the, what about the Minnesota style of play stuck out to you in terms of, oh, this is what center backs do in your system. Oh, this is what the back line does. And I know you mentioned she sort of liked the idea of doing more distribution eventually and all that kind of stuff. Was that sort of the main selling point of, I think I'll be challenged and I want to be challenged?
Yeah, I think from that aspect, I haven't watched a lot of Minnesota play, actually. What really drew me, I watched one of the first halves of the Michigan State game, and it was they were neck and neck, and it was just like a battle. And then I went on my visit. I went to like the two practices, and it was just the amount of like grit and effort and intensity and fun that they were having. And especially like if they're going to play a 4-back, that's new for me because we played a 3-5-2 at Creighton. It's just, to me, like the whole, and even like the Big Ten is a Power 5 conference is a different step from maybe it's as good as the Big East. Like, you can't compare. Sometimes it's hard to compare each conference. But it's just a different style of play. But from that aspect, it's like, it'll be a new experience and a learning experience of like getting with a whole new group of girls for a season, and like a new team, a new playing style, a new formation, confidence, and in all of those ways you can grow and make yourself a better soccer player, or you have to,
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm definitely, that stuff is always really interesting to me too. The idea of like what matters to players, what matters to coaches. Like, I just think the idea of, especially folks like you who have done like the full 4 years and then you're doing the grad year, of the idea of like testing yourself in a new conference is like, that's just something I'm sure competitive players want. Like the idea of, well, I know what I can be in this, like, can I do it in that? The idea of testing yourself. Last two things, Jordy, as I am probably the only person who reads the bio sections of college soccer teams' websites. So two facts that you have on there. And I also love what stuff college programs put on there or not, because they all do. So two things on there that I noticed. The career goal, you put
Okay.
exercise physician's assistant, and we just need to talk about that. I need to be your career coach right now. Like, we can't have the career goal being the assistant. Like, we need to clarify this. Are you talking about like that's the first job? We need to aim high is what I'm saying. We need to go big. But were you trying to say that's what your like first job out of school would be, or is that like let's do that forever?
So mine is, so the idea would be like an exercise, it would be in, what am I even, I don't even say, physician's assistant in sports medicine. So
gotcha.
for medical, so it's like, I'm going to go to 28 months. PA school is 28 months.
This is, okay, see, now we're back in a space I'm used to, because I've been heartbroken by people leaving for PA school. April Bakken didn't play pro because she wanted to go to PA school. Meg Gray is like, she almost left the Gophers and didn't do her 5th year because of PA school. Like, I'm scared of PA school, Jordy. So I do know about PA school.
Yeah. So ideally, yeah, I would love to be an exercise physio in sports medicine.
Nice.
I've had a lot of stints of injuries and have interacted with a lot of medical professionals, and I thought, you know what, hey, like being a PA would be amazing. I don't want to go to med school. I don't want to go to that many years of school. So if I can be in the healthcare field and be able to help other athletes, and with the PA profession, there's just so many positives that come with it. So I'm really excited for that, but it's like, there's no rush for me to go to PA school. So
I love it. I love it. And the other one is New Girl was listed as your favorite show. I'm a big fan of New Girl. I think a lot of people your age, especially in the shutdown, like it's on Netflix, it gets binged. Like, I think New Girl had a giant renaissance and new audience, whatever. This is a really simple question. Like, who would you be on that show? Which of the core characters? What do you think?
It's so hard because Jess has grown on me over the years. Like, that's one of those shows that I've watched probably completely like 3 or 4 times, but then it's if I'm bored at night, or like I'm you know, like you're feeling down, you put a New Girl, it makes you feel better. It goes back and forth because I love Nick a lot. I think he's hilarious. But Schmidt is like kind of like that type A kind of like, I don't know. I like both of those two. I would say I'm probably a mix of both of them.
You're a mix of Schmidt and Nick?
Yeah, I'm in the middle. I'm not super uptight like that, but I can still be laid back too.
Right. Yeah, you don't do like the day drinking level of a Nick.
No,
but you also aren't the militantly type A of a Schmidt. So yeah, I could it
could be more closer to Schmidt, but it is a little more like I could be laid back. I'm not in a rush where I'm going, you know, like I'm enjoying the ride kind of deal. And I feel like Nick kind of embraces that. So
what are some of these type A tendencies that we need to get out now so your teammates are aware of? What are some, like, do you have certain stuff you like, the locker room has to be a certain way, or your pregame has to be a certain way? What's the stuff we need to like get out into the ether so it's not going to be a surprise come season time for these teammates?
No, it's not. I mean, it's not necessarily. I just like to have like the ball. I like to have everything ready. I like to, before a game. I mean, everyone has their pregame rituals.
Yeah. What's yours? Walk us through the pregame ritual.
Well, pregame mostly for me would be, I mean, you listen to music, you have your like playlist. And then my dad actually has been able to come to many of my games, and so that I do a handshake with him before every game. So then those are my two pretty main pregame rituals. And like type A, I hate being late. I just you know, and I just like to, like, when there's order but not too much. So I'm not gonna be like, guys, you have to do this, do that. But I'm like, well, at the same time, if you're gonna show up late to practice and maybe not work very hard, we're gonna have some problems.
Okay, I can tell why you would vibe with Aaron. I can tell some of the elements.
Aaron's cutthroat.
What is your dad's name?
Mark.
So we're going to be on the lookout for Mark. I mentioned earlier in the show you were not here, and you wouldn't know this as only a new equal time adjacent person. We have started featuring the moms, which is the cat moms are easily our biggest supporters. They share our content. They are Patreon supporters, players' moms, my mom, Aaron's parents, everyone's moms. But I did get really funny pushback from Sophia Romine's dad. He gave me shit and he said, "What about the dads, dude? What about the dads?" And so now I will probably have to start featuring some dad content too, just so I don't get accused of hating fathers. And so your pregame handshake will be one of the first things that the dads get featured on. So all the dads out there, you know I love you too. I don't just drink with you in the parking lot before games. I also will feature you on the channel. Don't worry. That's great. So Mark, you can look forward to that. We will get you. You'll be the first dad we feature. I'm committing to that. That's on the record.
He'll talk your ear off. I don't know if you don't want to do that, but
well, they all do. The dads all do. They all do for sure.
They're just so passionate.
They are, and they really just want someone to listen to them. That's a man thing. Men just want people to have to listen to them. Well, Jordy Rothwell coming in, stud center back coming in to try and uphold the aerial threat center back grad transfer throne that we have here up with the Gophers. Excited to see you this fall, Jordy. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for
everyone
having me.
for tuning in. All right.
Have a wonderful weekend.